Okay, so that's that. So like I had just said, we're going to spend about a half hour or plus inside of Photoshop, just kind of taking apart a few images, seeing what we can do with them. So let's start there. All right, let me share Photoshop, get my chat pod out. So here we are again in Adobe Photoshop. I'm going to go through the entire process very quickly. We've done this at least 3 times, but just to really drive it home and kind of keep reviewing it, we're going to go to New File or Control Shift N, I believe is the hotkey. New, just Control N. Either way, it's going to bring up this dialog box. Let's pause here for a second. Maybe you have noticed this little ribbon along the top where it says photo, print, art and illustration, web, so forth. These are presets. So let's say that we're working as web designers. We can toggle right over here to web and just real quick look through what Adobe. Now, this isn't all websites have to be these dimensions. They're not. But this is what the Adobe engineers have come up with as pretty common, good sizes, like kind of a good jumping off point for the web. So you got 1366 by 768, web's most common size. What's funny about this is these sizes continue to go up and up and up. When I first started web designing, the common dimensions were like 720 by 480. So you can see that it's like triple in size. And really what that's letting you know, because this is measured in pixels, not inches, hardware, devices that we're looking at have just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. People browse the web on their television or their tablet. So the surface area of what you're looking at has gotten bigger. That's the reason that these numbers continue to like go up and up and up and up. Yeah, 1024 by 768. This was a pretty common size 7 years ago. And now you can see that it's on the smaller size. And then there's a bunch of templates to choose from too. We'll get into some of these templates, but we're not going to do any web design in this class. I think that to get your degree, you will end up doing some web design class, probably with Gotham. So, kind of take a look. There's a lot of cool things that can like really just start to speed up the art process. When it comes to templates, though, I'm a big fan of art and illustration and print. So let's take a look at print. Not that I'm always designing for print, even though I do a lot of print work. They've got a lot of free goodies in here. If you roll down, and things like this, uh, these are what's called mock-ups. And what it does is it allows you to put your design in an environment that looks, I don't know if the word is believable, but it gives it context. Let's put it like that. So for instance, sporty 3D shirt. Let's download this.
This is the one.
It's going to take a second, but we should be able to. Yeah, it's thinking, it's thinking, it's thinking.
Yeah, I was trying to my goal of that one is to, but is to instead of the community center and go to Joel.
Willow, I'm
So
sorry. Willow, I'm sorry, but your audio.
I also pretty sure I need 2 for my achievements.
Okay, Willow, I'm gonna mute you for a second. I'm pretty sure that was you speaking, Willow. Whatever audio equipment you got, it's not working very well. It's coming in like really, really muffled. I only picked out like every 9th word that you said. So if you want to ask a question, if you want to try a different audio device, if you got a different audio jack or you've got like an external mic or something like that, you might want to plug that in. But if that's just your device, if that's the internal mic on your device, that's probably not going to work. If you need something, what I would say is use the chat pod to type it out. Because I honestly, man, I missed everything you said. I'm sorry. Okay, this thing should have downloaded, so I'm going to go ahead and choose open. Sure would like it to open. Yeah, so here we go. So this is a mock-up, and this is pretty rad because let's say that I'm doing a t-shirt design. It's one thing just to have the t-shirt design, here, I'll file new. Let's see if I can open up something real quick. Maybe I've got something that's t-shirt-ish. Go to design port. Give me 1 second while I find some type of design here. We'll do design port. And I should have. All right, perfect. Oh, that's going to want to open an Illustrator. Okay, so here's a design, and I want this to be ultimately on a t-shirt. Okay, well, what will probably end up happening is at some point, let's say that I'm doing it for a client, right? I could email them this Illustrator file here, but to really give them an idea of what it's going to look like on a t-shirt, it might be better to apply it to a mock-up like this. And that's what these are for. There are tons of mock-ups out there. If you just Google Photoshop mock-up, hundreds and hundreds of hits. And within each one of those, there'll be hundreds of examples. There's two things that you want to consider when it comes to a mock-up. One, what does it cost? Because a lot of these are not free. In fact, a lot of the really good ones are not free because they're good. I know that I got a lot of students that want to do like sports jerseys and things like that. They'll want football jerseys, soccer jerseys, uh, hockey jerseys. A lot of that stuff you have to pay for because it's really cut up in really interesting, cool ways. The other thing that you want to double check is the size. A lot of these are just meant for digital presentations, which is fine, but occasionally you will want to print these things. Let's take a look at what size this is. Go to image size. Yeah, see, this is not printable. This is 72 DPI, so this is just really for the screen. But here's how this thing works. You guys have already seen smart objects now, this little icon in the lower right of a layer. We talked a little bit about the versatility of what a smart object is. We also talked a little bit about some of the drawbacks to a smart object. You have to rasterize them in order to do, this, that, and the other to it. Well, check this out. If I double click on this smart object, it opens up another document. Now, it would be great if there was another indicator that you're actually inside of the smart object other than this right up here. It says .psb. All of your work that I'm going to ask that you do for this class will be a PSD, PS Delta. This is PS Bravo. What's the difference? They both have a PS in it, right? Well, a PSB exists inside of a PSD. So you can think of this almost as a group. Like if we go back here, that layer's still there, but now I'm actually inside of that layer. That's one of the assets to a smart object. That's one of the advantages to it. They can have think of Russian nesting dolls, like those little dolls, and there's a doll inside of it, and they get smaller and smaller. That's kind of what smart objects can be like. You can have an object within an object within an object, and so forth and so on. Now, that doesn't usually happen, but when you see mockups like this, almost all of them have a smart object that you can kind of go into. And the reason for that is now that I'm inside of this little group here, I'm going to take my design, just going to hit Control A to select all, Control C to copy. And it even says like good smart object, good mockups will be named. Take a look, your design here. Pretty explicit, like where you put your stuff, right? So turn that off and I'll just hit Control V. And let's just make this little guy a little bit smaller. So that was just a Control T. Now I have to save it. So Control S. And then I can close it, Control W. And just like that, you can see that my design is on that t-shirt. Now, it does not look good. I haven't thought about, it's set to a multiply blend mode, so that would be normal. So not the best representation of what that thing could look like, but you start to get the idea of like, oh, you are applying your design to a contextual thing, be it a t-shirt, a billboard, a trifold, a menu, whatever it is. And clients can look at it and be like, oh yeah, that's nice. Or, you know what, I kind of like it, but you know what would be better is if we got rid of this ghosted square halo back here. And I don't like cyan for the color. I was really thinking more of green. Okay, well, just double click this adjustment layer here. And let's do a color overlay. They said they want green, so green it is. Now, in doing so, I have inadvertently lost some of the controls. So let's go to the FX here. Tear that effect off. Usually these things are set up with smart with an adjustment layer where you just double click, but this one looks like it's a little bit different. And it's set to multiply as well. So I guess the workaround for something like this would be, can't do a layer style. That's not going to do it. Let's cancel. Let's just fill it with green. There's my green color. Make sure I'm on this layer. There we go. All right, let's fix the other part and then we'll call it a day. All right, so I can't even see the gorilla anymore. So I'm going to double click on that smart object. And this actually dovetails nicely into what I wanted to talk about originally, which are selection tools. The tools that we've used so far, we've used the magic wand and we've used the object select, and both have worked pretty well. You know, I like those two tools quite a bit. There are a few more though that you should be familiar with. Right underneath your move tool, if I click and hold, I've got the rectangle. This is a pretty handy tool and I'll be using it momentarily. But for this, the elliptical marquee tool, because I do have a perfect circle here. So why lasso it? Why magic wand it? I think what I can do is I can just click, hold, and drag and pull out a pretty decent sized circle. Now, on that note, there are a few modifiers that you can use. So I'm just going to click, hold, and drag for starters. It starts from the upper left to the lower right. That's how all selection tools work. However, if you hold down the shift key, you'll go from the center out. So that can be kind of handy too. I probably want a perfect circle, not some weird egg shape or oval or something like that. So before I let go, I'm still holding down the Alt key. I'm going to hold down the Shift key as well. And that's going to perfectly constrain this to a perfect circle. Now, what else can I do? Well, Control D that. Hold down that Shift key, hold down the Alt key, so right here. All right, I'm close, but it's not right in the right position. So again, I haven't let go. I'm still got my index finger on the left button. Now I'm going to hold down the space bar. Okay. I'm going to hold down the space bar, and that lets me kind of move this thing around. So I'm going to let go of the space bar. Down the space bar. I'm just going to kind of keep messing with it until I got it pretty much right. That looks pretty close. All right, so I've got that gorilla circled in. Now I'll just hit the mask key. That looks pretty nice. Lastly, it's not a great color. I realize that that purple, when it's set to the multiply blend mode, is pretty hard to see. It's probably because it's dark. So if I just hit Control I, now that it's on a green shirt, that might look kind of weird. So let's hit Control I again. Let's try maybe a hue saturation. So we'll do an adjustment layer, hue saturation, and then let's just spin the hue slider till I get something a little bit more legible. Looks pretty good. I'll up the saturation some. Control S to save. Control W to close. And there we go. So still look kind of weird, but you start to get the idea of like, oh, I see where this is going. So now I could actually put my design onto a mock-up t-shirt. Or that was under print. We've got flyers. We've got business cards, shopping bags, more business cards, retail sign, square stamps, wall decoration. And that's that's just the tip of the iceberg. Every month, there's going to be new templates. They'll get rid of old ones, they'll put new ones in. My advice to you, start grabbing as many of these things as you can, especially if you see something that you like. See what's under art and illustration. These are great because they've got a lot of cool textures. Remember, we were just talking about, somebody had said that they wanted some roughed up grunge textures. Well, here you go. You don't need to go to textures.com. You don't need to go to Unsplash. Watercolor textures. I absolutely love these. In fact, I might grab some of those right now. Got quite a few of them. I have these halftone textures. I grabbed these. I grabbed this futuristic gradient. I mean, this stuff is awesome. And it saves a lot of time. You know, instead of me having to go through a tutorial and figuring out how to do a vintage neon glow, just get the template, change the type around, boom, you're good to go. That's not cheating. That's just the reality. So kind of work to your advantage. All right, so we're going to create a new document, file new. It's going to be the size of our collage, which is inches. And I think this one will be tall again. I usually work portrait. So width of 11, height of 17, 300 dpi. I'm going to change CMYK to RGB and choose create. So I should have a tall white rectangle. Great. Now it's time to import some stuff into this. So go to File, Open. I got some stuff in my downloads. And the reason I chose this stuff is to highlight some of these other selection tools. We just did a marquee, or we did an elliptical marquee select, fancy way of saying a circle. By default, right on top, rectangular. If you've got things that are geometric and hard edged, especially like in the squared or rectangle category, this is really the best tool. So I'm going to grab this building. I'm just going to click, hold, and drag, and pull out a nice marquee selection. Control C to toggle between your different open tabs, your different open documents. If you hit Control plus Tab, you'll cycle through. So I'll just hit Control V. All right, so I got some buildings. What else we got here? Just Control C, grab a little piece of that. Control V. Now for something like this, if I just wanted one little thin slice of it, again, I can just use that marquee tool, get one little piece, Control C, Control Tab, and Control V. So this is how I might begin creating my collage. Now, I have absolutely nothing in mind when it comes to what I want this thing to look like, so I'll just start the way that I usually start, finding a shape. And since this one's kind of long and rectangular, I'll take it, Control J to duplicate, and maybe I'll just build out a frame. Control J, Control J, Control J, Control T to transform. And Control J. All right, so now I've got a frame. Since all of this frame kind of coexists in one element, it probably makes sense to group it. So I'll take all of my frame pieces, just Shift Select and create a group, and I'll call this frame. Now, if I need to do anything to the frame, I know where all those pieces are. They're inside of that folder. So everything's kind of nice and tidied up. All right, what else? Well, we've got this piece right here. I guess just by default, I'll go ahead and just make it bigger. Boom. Take this building here. Control T. I'm just trying to fill the space right now. All right. So that's where I'm at right now. Maybe I want to knock out these little areas of green here. What tools do we have for something like that? That might be better suited for a quick select tool, which is underneath the object select. The way that this thing works is you basically paint the selection on. Make sure that you're on the correct layer. It needs to be on layer 2, not layer 1. It is a brush, so your brush hotkeys will respect this. So if I right click, I can expand the brush out. And I'm just going to click, hold, and drag to make that selection. Now I want to add to the selection, so I'm going to hold down the Shift key and click, hold, and drag. You can see I've got both those little chunks now. Now if I hit a mask, I'll invert the mask by Control I, You know, I've got that same selection, only now whatever's sitting behind it is transparent. Yeah, maybe I'll get another little piece here. Control C, Control Tab. Make sure that I'm below the mask, Control V. And there we go. All right, so the collage is well on its way. So to review, we created a new document, made sure it's the correct size. We used 2 new selection tools, 3 actually. We used the elliptical marquee, the rectangular marquee, and we use the quick select. The one thing that I really want to encourage you to start doing more of is adding and subtracting from selections. So you might say, all right, well, I need a piece selected here, but I need another piece as well. Remember, if you hold down that shift key, you should see the little plus icon in your selection tool. Click, hold, and drag, and now you've added to it. If you need to remove part of your selection, again, you can use any tool right now. If you hold down the Alt key, you'll see a little minus. You probably can't see it very well on my screen. So you see my cursor, if I hold down the Alt key while I've got a selection, there's a little minus, and then I can click, hold, and drag and take parts of it out. So this is a really, really nice way of customizing selections. There should never, ever be a reason that you can't select what you're trying to select. You have all of the tools that you need to. It's just a matter of how fast you can do it and how versatile as far as like your experience goes. But the more comfortable you get, the more that you keep working with it, the more you'll be able to completely dial in exactly what you need, no matter what you're trying to select. All right, so I'll hit Control D to deselect and turn that back on. That is honestly about all I wanted to kind of cover today. It's about 7 o'clock. I guess I figured it was only going to be about a half hour long. On that note, does anybody have any questions? Does anybody want me to go over anything while I've got this open? What would work best for everyone tonight? Is everyone going to be ready for the critique on Thursday? Let me take that back. And you can private message me. I won't bust you out in front of everybody. Does anybody foresee them having a problem not making that deadline? Because if I'm not going to see anything, I'm going to assume that everyone's going to be here on time and they'll have work to talk about. I'll bring it back up on Thursday. I'll run this critique for you guys the first time. Every subsequent critique, I'm going to want more and more involvement to the point where it'll start to be a part of the rubric. But I get it. You, for some of you, this might be your first design class. Some of you might be shy. Some of you might have friends in here and you don't want to, pick apart anything. Okay, great. Now, for that direct message that just came in, did you want to do that tonight or did you want to wait until Thursday? Totally up to you. You don't have to do it tonight, but if you've got some stuff that you want feedback on, it might not be a bad time to do it. No, you don't need drawings. You can have them. Certainly can. I'd love to see them, but it's not mandatory. Your next project is going to be a digital painting. So for those of you that like to illustrate, that should be a pretty fun project. But I do think that collages are, for Photoshop anyways, that's like one of the best projects to start with because you might have an idea of what you want it to look like, but in the end, it'll probably get changed around. And that can be a good thing. But collages are nice because it forces you to have X amount of layers. A digital painting, I could start right now and I could just work on the one layer the entire time. I don't think it's a great idea, but you absolutely could. Collages, that won't happen. You'll always have multiple layers. So yeah, it's a good starting off project. All right. Well, if anybody wants to show their work, what I would recommend is DM me on the chat pod here and shoot me a link to your Google Drive. Take your time, go ahead and get your PSD into your Google Drive. We've all created one, so should be good there. Once you have it in there, click the little settings button and choose share link. and make sure that you specify anyone with the link can open it. Take your time. Once they start getting popped in here, I'll pull them up and we can take a look at them. So I'll ask one more time. Nobody's going to have a problem meeting the deadline. Here's the thing. Even if you're not finished, even if it's not exactly what you wanted it to be, submit. Okay. It's better to get some points than no points. One thing that I hear every year, um, a student doesn't submit something, even though they may be done, but they're not happy with it. They're embarrassed. They think they could do better. Do not be that person. Okay. You let me be the judge of whether or not it's done or good. Never, ever, never, I'm going to say never not. That's not the way. Don't avoid a critique just because you're embarrassed. That's just, don't do that. Okay. Maybe no one in here will, but I do see it. And it's unfortunate because more often than not, the projects are really good. It's just the student is being so hard on themselves. And I get it. We are our own worst critics. Okay. There's no doubt about that. I could show you, I worked on a drawing on Friday. It's not done, but I will show you, I'll show you the drawing and I'll show you the process on Thursday, as a matter of fact, after the critique, because it's going to be a digital painting. I know how I want it to look. Nobody here does. So in my mind, maybe it could have used this, that, and the other to get it, completely done, but nobody else knows that. So don't psych yourself out. Don't like, oh, I could have worked more on it. Well, yeah, I mean, everybody could have worked more on it, but that's another part of being kind of a successful designer is knowing when to let go. I can't tell you how many paintings I've wrecked because I worked into it 1 hour more or 2 hours more, and I ended up just kind of ruining it. You got to know when to put the baby to bed, so to speak. Sometimes it's just like that thing's done. And if I make 2 more marks on it, I'm going to obliterate it. So call it. Thursday's the deadline. Whatever you got done, that's what you're submitting. All right, I'm going to close these out. I'm going to stop recording the chat here.